Hi guys, it is Wednesday, the 25th of March, and I decided to come outside. It's probably about 3:30, and I've been working all day. I've been winding striping patterns. Particularly, I've been winding the 9th anniversary colorway pattern, which is a 9 striper. It's kind of labor intensive, and I can only do so many of those at a time. I'm out in my front yard, so you can hear traffic noise. Anytime I record out here, you can hear traffic noise. Although I thought, you know what? Maybe since people are supposed to be staying home, there won't be as much traffic noise, but apparently not. Apparently people are still out. Although I suppose they could be coming home from work. I don't know. I'm gonna sit here next to what's left of our firewood pile for this year. It looks like such a mess right here. This is all just like little scrappy wood that I think we're gonna use as like kindling. But then we had so much of it because I don't know. We saved way more little stuff this time when we cut wood than we usually would. So I have more kindling than I will ever need. So I just started kind of making a pile, but like it's sort of a hot mess over here at this point in the winter. Yeah, that's what's left of our seasoned firewood, which I know you can't really tell too much because there's a big tarp over it, but I probably used about I'm gonna say close to 3/4 of it, so it was a good fire winter. I guess here I'm gonna turn this a little more just so you don't have to see the tarp. Okay, that's good enough. I'm not sure if you can see back in here somewhere. There's like two little volunteer daffodils. They came up last week one day. I think they're so happy. Okay, so anyway, yeah, I was winding those striping patterns. I can only do so many of them at a time because it really hurts my back to stand there and do them the way I have to do them. And I'm trying to avoid aggravating my neck like I did last December. Anyway, I've been working hard all day is my point, and so I decided to take advantage of the fact that it's actually pretty moderately temperatured out here. I don't even know what the temperature is. It's probably close to 50 if it's not. The sun was out earlier because let me tell you, it has rained the past 2 days. I'm getting a hair in my eye or something. Sorry. It's rained the last 2 days, and between the gloom and the rain, and it was really chilly in the house, it was just sucking my soul. And like, we don't need help with that right now, do we? No. So the fact that it was really nice out today, as in like the sun had been out, it's not out now. Now it's behind clouds, but I can still see some blue sky. So I decided to come out and just spend a little time out here with you guys. And I brought my planner. That's what it was called. I was going to call it my diary, but I think that's what the British call it. Isn't it what you guys in the UK call your day planner, your schedule, whatever, your diary? I'll be fancy and call it my diary because actually that's kind of what I've been using it for more than anything the last couple of weeks. I did really well at the beginning of the year. Like, here was like my January weeks, like all kinds of stuff written every day. I had things planned out. Like, I was actually using it the way you're supposed to. And then February got here. And here's the first half of the first week of February, and then here's the second half. It's just a big paragraph that I just wrote. Started out, wow, I really fell off of things here. Yeah, you did, Lisa. Same the next week. Same deal. By the third week in February, I had stuff written on the first day, and then the rest of it was just, yeah. So I'm using it more like a journal at this point. Oh my gosh, so on this page, do you see what it says? So much fail. This is how not to organize yourself using a journal. Oh my gosh. So anyway, and March has just been a giant fiasco. Like, really? Where did this entire week even go? Oh yeah, I was crazy getting ready for my show. Life was a blur. And then I put an expletive at the end. And a frowny face. And then after that, okay, so this, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but maybe you find it humorous. So the second week in March, which was before things started going completely off the rails with this coronavirus thing here, I started the week by writing up at the top, okay, it's a new week. And I also used another exclamation. I swear a lot in my planner, apparently. Let's get it together. And that was meant to be like motivating for me. And then I wrote nothing in any of the days, but I drew a line between Thursday and Friday right here. I don't know, where's the line? There it is. Yeah, well, you can probably see my explode. Anyway, whatever. You're grown-ups, right? So anyway, I have this line, and it's like the arrow going this way. It says, things kind of normal, but starting to get weird. Like, this is really happening. I just wrote this like yesterday. Like I'm putting the delineation between when things were still sort of okay, and then afterwards it's like, nope, effing coronavirus started really getting us all locked up right about here. This is when it started. Yep, we are screwed. You can tell I was in a really bright spot when I wrote that. It's all going to shit now. Buckle up. I'm really hoping that like a year from now I can read this and think, oh my gosh, Lisa, you were so overreacting. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think about that? Like in a year or 5 years from now, we're going to look back at this time and say, like, I wonder what our impression of this is going to be. It's so weird. Anyway, I've really not been journaling in here much, but there are areas in the back that I use for taking notes because there's note pages. And so in the back of my planner, oh, just dropped stuff. I have all of the questions that you guys asked from the episode 333 celebration drawings. Remember, my prompts were for you to ask questions or to ask for things that you wanted to see on the podcast at some point. So I had written them all down here and tried to like organize them, and I thought, since I have some time this afternoon, I thought I'd just sit out here and maybe at least, I have stickers, like day planner stickers. I don't even use them. I don't know why I should, just to put something on those empty pages. Anyway, they're falling out of the back of my journal, my planner, my whatever, my thing that I'm just writing my random thoughts and swear words in at this point. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to just go through these. Obviously, the things that you wanted to see or have me demonstrate on the podcast, I can't really do right now. But at least I can answer some of the questions that are just me talking. And we'll just sit out here in my front yard next to my kind of sketchy looking firewood pile that's covered up with a tarp. There could be dead bodies under there for all we know. Who knows? I don't think there are, but you know. Yeah, we're just gonna sit out here and listen to the traffic a little bit, and I'll talk to you. Okay? Sound good? Yeah. All right. Let's see. A whole bunch of people said they really enjoyed seeing my yarn and my projects and the modifications I make, and enjoyed my 10% stuff. Thank you. I'm really glad you like the content of the podcast. I try. I know sometimes it's just sort of crazy and, you know, kind of like right now. My husband is inside. He's working from home, and he was out in the porch room, and now he's like wandering around. He's probably wondering where I'm at because I didn't tell him I was coming out here to do this. I don't know. Maybe he'll figure it out since I'm sitting here with a camera in front of me. All right. Let's see. There was a question from VShaw7 who asked, where do I come up with my colorway ideas? You know, I come up with them in various and sundry ways. Thank you for the question, by the way. Some colorways start out with an idea or a specific inspiration first. For instance, my Pie Day colorways. So like my Pie Day colorway this year was shepherd's pie, you know, which is obviously a play on the dinner that you can make, shepherd's pie, with the meat and the potatoes and the veggies and everything in it. But it wasn't really, that's not what the colorway was. It was shepherd's pie, as in all the colors of the sheep that shepherds take care of. So, you know, that is what drove the colors in that colorway. Whereas other colorways, especially variegated colorways, I would say, more so maybe than self-striping, I just start playing with colors. And, you know, when I find color combinations that I like and they turn into colorways that I end up dyeing for the shop, then I look at them and I think, what do you remind me of? Or, I think, like, what are other things that are these colors? And sometimes that's how they come up with names. And sometimes they just come up with really random names, and there's absolutely no rhyme or reason for it. It used to be that it still is the case. Like when I'm dyeing for shows sometimes, especially fiber, I love to play, and I'll just do like non-repeatable colorways essentially. And then like the day or so before the show, when I'm trying to get everything packaged and labeled, like I have to come up with colorway names to give them. And they just end up being ridiculous stuff sometimes. So, but that's mostly it. Either, I would say, between 60 and 75% of the time, there's a specific impetus or inspiration for the colorway. And the rest of the time, it's just me randomly playing, because that's what I really love to do. And a lot of times I randomly play and they end up just being one-offs that sometimes I don't even give names. But, other times I can write the combinations down if they work and they become colorways. So I hope that answers the question sufficiently. Let's see. How do I choose my next knitting project? Actually, several people asked that question. So is it by the aesthetics of the project? Is it because of the yarn that I want to work with? Or is there some other reason? Actually, those are very, good ways that I choose projects, all those things. So a lot of times it'll be a pattern that I know I want to make. For instance, right now I've got yarn sitting in the yarn room, but it's sitting out on the table because I do have a specific project I want to make. It's actually the Celtic Tree Cowl by Tiny Owl Knits. I've had this on my brain that I've wanted to make that pattern for quite a while. And so, but it was sort of a frivolous pattern for me to make because it wasn't really something I was going to make with like my yarn, Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn. So it's not something I would be using for a show sample. So I thought, well, I'll do it when I have time and I'm not really focused on show samples. Well, right now, is a good time for me to, be knitting on show samples since I've got a huge gap of time before my next show. But it's also a good time just to do something that'll make me feel good and comfy and warm. And so, like the knitting of it, a cozy knit, not so much cozy on, but like something that's going to be comforting, like the mashed potatoes of knitting, those kind of projects, the comfort food knits. So I thought that would be one that I would want to do. So that's the next project I'm probably going to be casting on here within the next day or two if I can figure out the yarn. That's actually my problem right now because I'm going through my stash and I want to make it out of nice yarn. And I could dye up some of my own, like even some of my ridge top yarn, so it would be nice and woolly for color work. The pattern calls for sport weight though, and I only have fingering and DK. And DK I think would make it way too big, so I don't want to do that. Yeah, so, in that respect, that's a project that I've definitely want to do. Same way like the Weekender. I don't know, I should probably cast that on now. That would probably be a good one to do right now. Because I have the yarn for that, and I know I want to make the pattern. But other times it is just the yarn. Like the last podcast I did, I showed you that shawl that I cast on out of the Noro Tayo. That was totally yarn driven. I was sitting there looking at it, and it's like, I want to knit with that yarn right now. And a lot of times when I cast on socks, like I designed my next sock pattern or sock project based on, the yarn that I know I really want to knit up next, the stripy yarn or whatever. So, because most of my socks are stripy yarn socks. Sometimes they're not, but usually they are. So, yeah, it can go either way. But again, for me, sometimes I decide on my next project based on what I want to have in the shop as a sample for my shows. So if I know I have a specific project that I want to do as a show sample, then that might be bumped up in the priority level so that I can get that done. Let's see. What is the first thing? Okay, Trilinda asked, what is the first thing you would do if you won the lottery? Well, the first thing I'd probably do is be shocked because I don't play the lottery, but I know it's a theoretical question. The first thing I would do is pay off debt, my debt, any debt that my husband might have. You would think I should know. We're one of those couples, like we've only been married a few years. We're later in life. Our finances are pretty separate. So, like, while we both kind of know each other's stuff, like, I don't know the details of his. He probably doesn't know the details of mine, and that's fine. Like, we know the general gist of what we've both got going on, just as by way of explanation. Like, unlike, I know, like, my ex-husband and I, like, our finances were combined, so, and pretty much he knew nothing that was going on because he didn't want to be bothered with it, and he left it all up to me. So, yeah. Anyway, I would pay off debt, and I would probably then help my kids out with some stuff. But otherwise, I'd probably put a lot of it in savings. I might, like, spring for us to have a really nice vacation somewhere. But the older I get, the more responsible I feel like I am with money, and the more conservative I am with how I handle money. Or we handle, well, not we, because I don't tell my husband what to do. He buys motorcycles left and right. What are we talking about? But he buys them for me a lot of the time, so I can't complain there. No. That sounds like we spend a lot of money on motorcycles. He buys, like, really good deal motorcycles and then fixes them up. So we're not, like, buying, like, brand new motorcycles. Not that you care, right? Anyway, so that's what I would do. Pay off debt, help my kids, maybe go on a nice vacation, put the rest in savings. Hey, hi, Polly. Polly's like, why are you sitting out here? Hi, bud. Meow. I don't know if he'll let me pick him up so you can see him. Oh, it's a big kitty. Oh, Polly is our polydactyl cat. See his big extra toed paws? Huh? Yeah. Oh, you're so soft. He is the softest, fluffiest cat. And he looks really big, but he's not heavy because he's just all fur. Yeah. Anyway, so that's Polly. Let's see. Let's see. Christine, Iona Paint, did ask if you could have a tour of the outside, like the yard and everything. Yes, I'll do that when it's actually like maybe a little greener and things don't look like quite the hot mess that they are here at the end of winter. I hope you can understand that. I already showed you my dilapidated firewood pile. But yeah, I'll do that sometime this spring, hopefully. Do I have any gardening plans? She also asked. The last couple of years I did try to do some container gardening over here on the side of this shed that you can't see, but it's right here. And I had limited success with it. Like, I get some herbs that last for a while and then they kind of die out. I was thinking I was not going to try to do anything this year other than maybe a few more herbs. Just because I have access to farmers markets and I figure, you know what, somebody else is making a living out of growing this stuff. Plus I've been getting the Misfits Market stuff. I figure, you know what, I can do without putting a garden in. Well, now, the last time I was on a big the last time I was grocery shopping period, which was over a week ago now, I ended up in the seed section and I picked up, like, I don't know, maybe 10 packets of seeds, although some of them were flowers. I don't know if they'll actually get planted, but I did tell my husband, you know what, this might be a good year for us to, like, grow food, because who knows, like, what's going to be going on? I don't know. I just don't know how things are going to be affected, so maybe. But if we do it, I kind of want to do raised beds, and I don't know if he's going to be super into that, so we'll have to play that by ear. Let's see. Oh, how does my husband feel about me deciding to let my hair go gray? Brenda KBB asked that. He was fine with it. It's funny, in the past, he's made comments anytime I've said, oh, maybe I'll let my hair go gray or something. He's like, oh, I think you look good with your hair colored. Or, no, you don't want to do that. But I don't know that it was really because he would be averse to me having gray hair. Because he doesn't usually make a big deal out of that stuff. I know he does care for my hair. He thinks I look better with my hair longer than shorter. He has said that. And I tend to agree. I don't like my hair super short either. Although it's funny because I've been wearing it all pulled up so much lately. Mainly because I think it looks better since you can see all the gray here because I'm so gray in the front. So it tends to, like, not look quite as wonky if I pull it up because then all the dark stuff's hidden in the back. That's the main reason I've been wearing it up. Just also when I'm working, it's easier to keep it out of my face this way. But yeah, I told him at the beginning of this year, I'm like, you know what, I think this is the year. I'm not doing this anymore. And he's like, okay. So, yeah. I don't think he cares. Let's see. I had Old Mermaid, Little Mermaid, asked if I could recap some of my most used and worn items versus FOs that didn't work out. I think I'm going to use that as maybe a separate video in general, but I will point out that this sweater, this antler cardigan that I knit a couple of years ago, well, probably maybe 3 years ago now, I love this. This is probably my most regularly worn FO that I've ever made. This sweater gets a ton of use. I did have another sweater that I had knit many, many years ago that I used to wear all the time. Just it was like my around the house sweater, and then I accidentally shrunk it. Don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking apparently, but yeah, I shrunk it. I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. So it is no more. But this one I wear pretty much like every week, all the time. Like I just throw it on. It's so nice and warm. Cascade 220. Heather's in the Aspen colorway, I believe it was. I was wearing it a week or so ago while I was downstairs cleaning out the pellet stove, and I had the door open, but I didn't have it open the whole way, and it was kind of all sooted up the way wood stoves and pellet stoves get, and I bumped my elbow on it. You see that dark spot right there? I was so upset with myself because I should have known better, and I have washed it since then, but that soot is kind of greasy, you know. I don't know, it's sort of an oily thing, and so I scrubbed it as much as I dared to scrub it because I was so afraid of felting the sleeve. I didn't, but anyway, so yeah. So it's definitely not in new like shape, but it is my most favorite and most worn finished object, and I think it's because it fits really, really well. Like, this is probably the best fitting sweater I ever have knit for myself. You know, you guys know I have fit issues with my sweaters. This one was not too big, not too small. It fit really well up top, and it's been a long time since I've knitted her. It's been long enough now that I don't remember, but I think I did a different size on the top than I did down on the bottom, the body part, and I think that had a lot to do with it too. So I keep thinking I'm going to make myself another one of these, because I absolutely love this sweater, and I have more sweater lots of Cascade 220 in there just waiting to be made into something. I think I'm down to two sweater lots, but I have a really pretty, like, I think it's like a rusty red is how I would describe it, and I think that's going to become an antler cardigan because it's just, I love it. So yeah, but I will do a separate video where I talk more about that concept in general, like my favorite objects versus things that didn't turn out. Let's see, I answered the dream motorcycle trip one on the last episode. Let's see, Frugal Knitter asked to hear about my design process. I'd love to tell you what my design process is, but I don't really know. I'm not like a stellar like designer who really knows what they're doing. I'm a designer who, I'm intuitive. And it's more, most things that I've ever designed have been, I started to knit something and then just kind of played with it as I did it, and then I wrote it down either after the fact and then knit it again to make sure I had it right, or I'd start doing something and be like, ooh, I should write this down. And that's how I design. That is 90% of the time, that's how things get designed if I'm doing them. It's as I'm knitting, it's very intuitive, kind of designed on the fly. The Ryoko wrap, that one was an idea in my head that I started with the vision of it and then figured out how to make it happen. That one was in that direction, more of that type of a design. But, and I'm sure there's maybe been one or two others that worked out that way. But for the most part, yeah, it's just me playing and deciding, oh, I want to make something. So if I ever do decide to design something like really big and intricate, that'll be interesting to see how that goes. If I plan more ahead of time or not. Although, you know, it's very interesting because in my other life, prior to my knitting life, I used to be a writer. And I wrote that same way. Like some people would like outline, like I would mostly did nonfiction. I did magazine articles. But I knew some writers who were friends of mine who they were very organized and had like ideas and outlined things and knew what sections were. And it's like, I was like, I know the general gist of what I want to do, and I just start writing and then form it into what I wanted it to be after the fact. I think that's just the way I work in general with a lot of things. Even sewing. Like, obviously, I'm not designing my own clothes, but like when I'm sewing something, a lot of times, like, I see what the general thing is, but it's like, you know what? I want to change all this, this, and this, and I try changing things. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's just the way my brain works. So that's the extent of my design process. How did I start knitting and how did I get into dyeing? I learned to knit as a kid, like a lot of us do, I guess I'll say. I was probably 8 or something, and I went to like this after school program at my church, and like after dinner there was always like this activity time, and the one time I learned how to knit doing that during that time. And then I didn't really do a whole lot of it over the years until I got to be an adult, and I would pick it up here and there. I also learned to crochet as a kid. I think my one grandmother taught me like basic like chain stitch and how to do granny squares. And then, you know, so both of those things I would just pick up here and there and go back to. But it wasn't until the year my mom moved to Florida, which it's now been, oh, please don't bump the camera. Thank you, Tippy. Tippy, you want to be in the camera? Come here. Oh, don't do that, Muffin. Here's Tippy. Tippy came out in the sunshine. Okay, yeah, Tippy doesn't want to be in here. Hi, Muffin, you want to come up? Okay. Oh, you're muddy though. Oh, jeez. Okay. Okay, don't snag the sweater. Oh, here's Muffin. She's a hot mess too. Oh. Okay, you need to get down now. Oh, geez, sorry. Sometimes I put her down as if she's a cat, and she doesn't bounce the way a cat does. Poor thing. I'm only like a foot off the ground though, so she's good. Okay, so anyway, what the heck was I talking about? Oh, learning to knit. Yeah, my mom moved to Florida in 2006. And I was down there a lot those first couple years after she moved. And there was a little yarn store not far from her house. Like, I passed it all the time. And so the one time, like, early, it was like January 2007, I was down there. And I stopped in the yarn shop and said, you know, I would like to knit a hat. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, I haven't knit in years. And so the woman who was working, she says, well, go pick yarn that you like. And, you know, she kind of pointed me in the right direction to appropriate yarn. So I picked some yarn. I think it was either Sport Weight or DK or something. And she's like, okay. And so then she got me needles that would work for that yarn. And basically she told me you need to cast on this many stitches, because I told her I was knitting it for my daughter. And she said you can just cast it on and start knitting. You don't even have to do ribbon, because I told her I don't remember how to do very much. And she's like, you just have to do the knit stitch, the brim will roll. And that's what I did. And she's like, you know, eventually you'll have to do decreases for the top. But she said here, and she looked up, she had a book that had like a directory of yarn shops. And so she looked up a yarn shop near my house and gave me the phone number for it. And it's taken off from there. That was it. And I have to say that I think she did me the greatest gift in saying, here, just do this. Cast on and just knit. Instead of saying, oh, here, you need to buy a pattern, and you need to follow this, and you need to figure out how to do this purling, and you need to, you know. Sorry, the sun's out now. I'm not going to complain, but it's right in my eyeballs. Anyway, so yeah, that was awesome, because it actually fit right in with what I was just saying before, how I tend to I like doing things intuitively, and so that let me do that project intuitively. And once I did get to the point where I needed to, you know, do the decreases, I did go to the yarn shop, and she's like, sure, we'll sign you up for a lesson. So I took a one-on-one lesson. I learned how to do decreases, and then I signed up to take another class. It might have been on cabling shortly thereafter, because, you know, when you first start knitting, that's exactly what you want to do, like knit cables immediately. At least that's what I wanted to do. And I think by April of that year, I was working at the yarn shop, because I was in there all the time. Only one day a week, but still, it was awesome. And I learned so much there. And I'm always so, so thankful for Bonnie, who now helps me with my business. she does some yarn stuff for me sometimes. I'm always so thankful that she took a chance on me. So Bonnie, if you're watching, thank you so much because it's gotten to this point. This is where I'm at now. So yeah, that's how I started knitting. As far as how I started dyeing, I was knitting, and one of the main things I wanted to be able to knit when I first started knitting, well, the first thing was I wanted to be able to make hats that I could donate to charity, and the other thing is I wanted to learn how to knit socks. I don't know why, but I thought knitting socks would be amazing, and clearly I've done a million socks since, well, not literally, but you know, socks are a big thing that I knit. And I very quickly learned that I loved like self-patterning socks, you know, like Opal, and what was it, Schockenmeyer? I don't know, Regia, those kind of yarns, because we carried those in the yarn shop, and I loved those yarns. And then that was around the time that I think Ravelry had maybe just started in, what, 2007? And some like knitting podcasts were starting to happen, and I somehow got connected to like knitting blogs, maybe blogs more than podcasts at that point. But I was seeing these knitting blogs, and there was like, they were talking about these indie dyed yarns, and at that point in time there weren't a lot of people who were doing self-striping yarn, and so it was much harder to come by, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to dye self-striping yarn, and that was my impetus for it. That was always my driving thing. I've always wanted to focus on self-striping, and I enjoy doing it. It's labor intensive, like I've said, but it's a lot of fun, and I just get so much joy out of it. So that was how I got into dyeing, and other than that, I'm completely self-taught with dyeing. I've never taken classes or anything. It's all from reading and doing. Again, it's the doing, you know, just learning by doing and making mistakes and learning not to do those things again. So anyway, let's see. What do I love to do outside of crafting and dyeing? Angelic Embers asked that. Gosh, sorry. What do I love to do? Well, I love to hang out up here in the mountains, which is a good thing because that's what I'm doing a lot of right now, right? No, in the nice weather, I love to kayak. I love to ride my bicycle, and I'm really fortunate because where we live up here is an excellent area for that, because there's multiple small lakes right around here. I may need to move because I'm going to be blind, or else I'm going to just sit here with my eyes shut, one or the other. Anyway, like you guys probably know, I've talked about it before, there's like a little lake like just a mile down the road from us, maybe not even a mile, and I often go there like early in the morning to paddle during the nice months. There's a couple of other lakes not very far from here. I don't tend to go to those by myself though. I don't know why. I'm kind of chicken. But they're options. And then there's several bicycle trails around here. There's small ones like rails to trails kind of places, and Ohio Pile, which a lot of people, even if you don't live around here, you might be familiar with. The Gap Trail is right there through Ohio Pile, so I can drive like a half hour from my home and be right there, and I can ride on there, which I love to do. I don't get to do it as often as I'd like, but yeah, so bicycling, paddling. I like to hike too, and we've got the Laurel Highlands Trail right here as well, which is a huge trail in this area. I just don't get to do it quite as often as I would like to, but there's so many things that are accessible to me up here, so I kind of get my pick. In the winter I love to snowshoe, but honestly I did not get to go at all this year, and clearly will not get to this year. In the past couple of years maybe I've gone once. We just haven't had the winters for it, you know, to get enough snow for it. It's kind of depressing. Other than that, you know, I love to ride my motorcycle, whether it's just me going out for a ride myself, or you know, going on a trip with my husband. We both ride. It's so much fun. I love doing that. And I love to travel just in general. You know, like we were supposed to go to Ireland, which isn't happening, but like I like to travel. Not necessarily international travel. I mean, there was a time where I think I would have enjoyed a lot more of that than I think I would now. But even just seeing stuff around the United States is amazing. And Canada, like Canada, I guess is not the United States, obviously, but it's not international, like I don't have to get on a plane to go do that. So, anyway, those are the things I love to do. And I love to cook. I love the idea of gardening more than I love actual gardening, but I do think growing your own food is magic. I will say that. Anytime I manage to grow something that I can eat and feed to my husband, that is magic, and I'm very proud of myself. Oh, let's see, what else? Would I consider vending at a show in Kentucky or Indiana? Naughty Knitter 86 asked that. Sure, I would consider it. It's all a matter of really, for me, it's timing and distance. I mean, that's not too bad of a distance. I go other places that are that far. But the shows that I would consider vending at, I mean, they just have to fit into the rest of my show schedule, because I do try to limit how many shows I do that are super far away. And then also, like I know there's one in Kentucky in May that I've looked at before, but it is the same weekend, almost always the same weekend as a show right around here. So the one around here usually wins. But yeah, and then like if they're in the fall, a lot of times we do vacations in the fall. So if it's going to fall over our vacation, that won't work. But otherwise, yeah, I'm always up for hearing about new shows. Kat Svalak asked about my stash management. My general way that I've been managing my stash the last couple of years has been, at the beginning of the year, I've been going through everything, literally pulling it off the shelves and everything, and tossing the stash to make sure there's no little critters in there or anything. And then the things that I think that I would like to have out where I can see them so I can be inspired by them, I put those in my cubbies. And I try to organize them, like sock yarns and sweater lots and things I might use for shawls, what have you. And then the rest of it I put away in bins and I leave there. And sometimes I'll get it out, if I'm looking for something specific that I know that I have. But other times it'll stay there for several months. And then, sometimes I'll swap some things out that are on the shelves with some things that are in the bins. And other times it'll just stay there until the next year when I do the whole process again. I just feel like rotating it is better for me, because that way I can focus on fewer things and maybe have a better chance of using them. I do try to go through my stash fairly regularly and de-stash things that I'm not going to use anymore. And a lot of those things end up, or that I don't think I'm going to use anymore. Like I might have bought it and had an idea for it, but I've since totally that's not my thing anymore. So I either give those away to draw, I use them for drawings, or sometimes I do just give them away. I gave a ton of yarn away to Goodwill whenever I was moving from my house to up here a few years ago, because that was the easiest way to deal with it. I hate doing de-stashes on Ravelry, or I had a de-stash account on Instagram for a while. It's honestly kind of more hassle than it's worth. I mean, sometimes it might be worth it, but I don't know. At this point, I try not to buy things that I don't, unless I really think I'm going to use them. I may not use them for a few years, but it has to be something that I know that I really, really love. So that I don't have that excess stash building up. That's probably the best hint I can give you. Just be really mindful about what you're bringing in the house. Then you don't have a stash that you have to worry about getting out of hand, or what you're going to do with it. Let's see. Okay, Seductive Barry also asked about how I got into dyeing and who taught me. I already said I'm self-taught. I'll talk more about that in another video at some point too. Safe54 said she enjoys seeing my bird and squirrel feeders and our wildlife, and hearing about the wildlife up here. Well, thank you. I'm sure I'll have a lot more to tell you about with that in the coming months, now that it's getting nice. I had a thought. I might set myself up out on the deck where the bird feeders are and just kind of do an extended just video where you guys can watch the birds. Maybe I'll talk to you, but would you enjoy that? I don't know. Not for hours and hours, but short video. Let's see. The K and C couple asked how my yarns knit up on larger projects, and I'm assuming they maybe mean self-striping. I
have to be honest, I've never used my self-striping like in a sweater or a really large shawl. I know some people have. And obviously the stripes are going to play out to be much, much narrower on larger circumference items than they would in a hat or a sock. To the point maybe where they wouldn't really even stripe so much as maybe micro stripe or yeah, I don't really know because I don't dye things with big enough stripe patterns that I could do like a adult size garment where the stripes would maintain themselves, at least not for maybe more than one round. So I'm really not sure because that's never been my focus for my self-striping yarn, quite honestly. That's never been what I've specifically been dyeing them for. Shawls, they would be cool. It would kind of depend on what kind of shawl you're doing. Like if you were doing a triangular shawl, obviously the stripes would be big and then they would work to get smaller. I actually have some patterns that I'm planning on doing in self-striping, so I can get back to you on that once I get a chance to play with those. But that's a good question. If you meant something else by that question that I didn't understand, let me know and I'll try answering again. Let's see. Leaner, who's Eileen, asked me, how do I keep myself going as far as scheduling my time as a one-person business and not working too many hours without stopping? Well, Eileen, as I showed you earlier in this podcast, I am stellar at keeping myself scheduled with my planner. I have everything planned out to the minute every day, as I just showed you. I'm so full of crap. Yeah, it's a challenge. And honestly, some days are better than others. But, I feel like for my job, like, I'm work for myself. And the work I do is not consistent in how urgent it needs to be. Like, right now, yes, I have some things I do have to be dyeing. And that's what I was working on today, was getting it all wound up in the striping pattern so I could dye those colorways that you guys pre-ordered. But, I do not have anything urgent driving me other than like doing some shop updates. And right now, I'm also not feeling super urgent in that just because it's a crazy time. There are tons of indie dyers who are now not doing shows, who are putting a lot of stuff up online, and there's a lot to choose from. So as much as I also have a whole cargo trailer here full of, show stock that I'm going to be adding to my shop, I don't feel like I need to be dyeing a ton of new stuff right this minute. I mean, I have new things that I'm going to be coming out with over the, the coming weeks and everything, but it's not as urgent as it is, say, if I'm getting ready for a show in 2 weeks, then things are, there's no time to waste. So on a day-to-day basis, I would say I have my routine. I get up super early because my husband gets up early. Even working from home, he's getting up early. So, we get up, and so then I have a couple of hours that I spend usually knitting in the morning or crafting or doing my own thing, and then usually somewhere between 8 and 9, that's when I start working. But what I do for work varies from day to day, and honestly, I don't usually have that planned out ahead of time unless there's a deadline that I really, really need to be meeting for something. Like, my husband oftentimes, now that he's been home, he's like, so what are you going to be dyeing tomorrow? It's like, I don't know, maybe. And, like, he's so planned, like, he's so organized, he does not understand this mode of operating, or if you can call it that. But anyway, and then, I'm also doing household stuff amidst my day, so I might be working for a while, and then I might stop because I need to, get something out and do some prep work for dinner later in the day, or if I'm, trying to get some cleaning done, I'll do some work, then I'll go do some cleaning. And so, I have the luxury of being able to jump back and forth from things like that. Although I will say I do try to be finished with all of my work by dinner time. I don't like to have to work after dinner time. So that's kind of my stopping point in my mind. The only thing I ever have to do usually after dinner is if I might have to go downstairs and rinse yarn and hang it up to dry. But other than that, I'm done. I try not to work in the evenings. I spend that time with my husband, or, after dinner I might go in the bedroom and sit in bed and knit before bed. But I'm usually done working by then. So it's just a matter of what's urgent. Again, like if it's a show's coming all bets are off and I could be working till midnight. I hate when I have to do that, but sometimes it happens. So, yeah. I think it's very different, though, for people right now who are forced to be at home working when they're usually at an office working. That's hard. It's got to be hard. I mean, my husband's doing it, but he's been really good about staying scheduled. Like, he's done now. Like, I've seen him walking around the house from where I'm sitting. Like, he's done, and he won't look at that stuff again until tomorrow morning. But it is a struggle to separate yourself from work. When you work from home and everything's here, and, like, no matter where you look, there's some sign of what you're doing. I do get in that trap. And I know some people, like, just don't look at their work email after a certain time. I'm not that hardcore about it. I may look at my emails. I may not always respond right then. I might wait till the next day. But, like, I might see emails right before I go to bed or whatever. I guess maybe I've been doing it long enough that I just know what I can deal with and what I can't. And I just know that I've gone through stages where I have done nothing but work from morning till night, literally. Time I got up till the time I went to bed, and I worked all day, you know, still getting some house stuff done or whatever in between, and it's tiring. Like, I can't do that anymore. Like, I know I need me time. That's important to me. So, I've gotten pretty good at that. So, make sure you carve out some you time. Put some boundaries on it. Like I said, those are my hard boundaries. When I start in the morning and when I'm done at night. I try to keep those as my hard boundaries. Everything else in there can fluctuate a bit. And I think that was it, because the last question was, what would my dream vacation be if money wasn't an object? And I answered that on the last podcast. So those were all of the questions, I'm pretty sure. There may have been more questions, but they were related to things that you wanted to see on the podcast or have me show you or demonstrate or whatever. And I will do those in separate videos or in another video at some point. But I think that's probably enough for today, because number one, the sun's out now. I can't see. My retinas are burning, and I'm also getting actually very warm. So I'm going to go. Plus, my poor dog's sitting over there now. She's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. She doesn't like being outside. It's weird. But she's, like, sitting there very tentatively, like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Let's see if I can show her to you. There, you can see the rest of our firewood. Can you see the dog? I think she's right there. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, she wants to go in. She's probably thirsty. It's warm out here. Anyway, all right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed my questions and answers in my front yard that went from shade to sun and the traffic noises of the mountain. So anyway, I will talk to you again soon. Bye. Did I even introduce myself? If not, I'm Lisa, also known as Fiber Nymph. This is 90% knitting, but not a regular episode. So, yeah.